All right, friends, welcome to today. I'm going to be addressing memorization at the piano and talking about all the secrets I've done over the years that I've picked up that frankly most teachers never talk about. And it's the kind of stuff that will help you from feeling like it sounded better at home when you're in front of somebody, the kind of stuff that prevents memory slips when you go out in front of a crowd and feel like, I had this, why is it just a total blackout? So it's going to be really exciting. 30 minutes. Oh, and I should put this right away in the comments for those that join after. If it will let me. Oh, I don't think I can do live chat until somebody adds. No, I can't. That's funny. Oh, well. Basically, how about a. No, not poll. I'll just wait. That's fine. But I'm going to change 10 people's lives at the end of these 30 minutes. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. I'm going to get into, basically, in order, a bunch of ideas that helped me to learn Stravinsky's Rite of Spring for solo piano, probably 10 years ago now, or close. I was 16 when I first started looking at it. And if you're familiar with the piece, it goes without saying that this is one of the hardest things ever written for solo piano. So before you go, oh my gosh, this is way too advanced, I can't apply this to my music, let me encourage you to think of it the other way. That if the strategies work for something this difficult, they'll most definitely work for something less difficult. So maybe some of the notes will be hard to track with, but the strategies, I promise, will not be. I will present them in such a way that you'll find how to play them even at a beginner level piece, intermediate, advanced. That's the idea. So let's just jump right in. If I were to do a full version of this, it would probably be 24 to 48 hours, literally. But what I'm going to do is essentially go through a few passages in the piece and talk about elements that made it difficult to memorize, as well as what I did to overcome that. And none of this is going to be just put in more reps or just keep trying it, which is sort of the typical teacher advice. Well, you'll get it next week. Like, no, that's not how you solve problems. So let's jump right in. Right at the beginning, there is this idea where you have a pattern that gets repeated many times, but each time with a slight variation. And this is, for example, we get just even these 5 notes. And that's kind of all he presents. And then over and over, there's different patterns with it. It's just all over the place. You've got at least 12 or 13 instances of this on the first page. Each with a different rhythm, each with a different rubato, some with 2 grace notes, some with 1, some with none. It's just all over the place. And so immediately we're thrown into this predicament of how do I remember not only every pattern, how do I remember them in the right order? So there's 2 ways to solve this. First, what we're going to do is explore what I call compare and contrast. So basically, you're just looking at, imagine, like you have 2 images that are basically duplicates of each other, but they have slight differences. When I teach this live, I usually have a PowerPoint presentation. Harder to do on YouTube. But there's this old kids game called Mr. Crab, and it's like this, where you have like a rock, and on the other image, it's a slightly different angle. And the goal is to find all the differences. You do the same thing in music, where essentially what you're going to do is think about where do I see this pattern coming back, even if it's changed, where is it at least similar? And you actually leave everything else out immediately so that you can understand what is the same and what is different. For example, I have this first pattern, which even that I could break down into 2 pieces. If I just think of the notes that go down, there's sort of like the first falling section, and there's 2 notes added on. So now I'm going to do a scan and say, where does this happen again? And the fastest way to find it is by just looking at anything that you can recognize as similar. In this case, just the starting note C. So I see one of them, two of them, three of them, 4, 5, 6, 7, right there. So just in the first 9 measures, for example, there's 7 times that C comes in. And every time, what I'm now going to do is just compare the first couple notes, because remember, we're comparing and contrasting, we're not just playing through. So I'm going to compare, for example, the first 4 notes. So we have a double grace note. Next time it happens, same notes, different rhythm. And I'm going to put to words what the difference is so that I have at least some basic knowledge of it. Third time, same notes, yet a different rhythm. First it was quarter note, then it was triplet, now it's 8th note. So quarter, triplet, then we get 8th. Very subtle, but definitely different. The 4th time, we get a quintuplet. This is 5 notes within one beat. So, but the grace notes are fit within the quintuplet. So it's much faster. 5th time, I get an 8th tied to a quarter, tied to another 8th. So very long. Let's see. Same notes, yet again, but a completely different rhythm. So I'm not going to go much more past that, but the idea is that every time something comes back, you're always going to understand what makes it the same, what makes it the difference. In the first 5, the notes are exactly the same. Not one of them shares the same rhythm. So before I even move on and learn the rest, what I would do is probably just play them back to back several times like I just did, and then I would really, like, probably in the other hand, like I was doing, keep the metronome going. So I have like a beat or a pulse that I'm feeling it against. So we have, there's my quarter note. Next one, triplet. Third one, 8th note. 4th one, really fast, because that's the quintuplet. 5th one. Totally different in their feel rhythmically. Now, where you would do more reps of this and where you would pause, of course, is if you're not getting that right. So the idea is, like, understand it. Don't just do it once and move on. In my case, I got it right, so I don't have to do more reps. But the philosophy is the same. So you can apply this, by the way, to, let's say, Mozart K545. Because they both actually start with the same rhythm. Measures 1 and measures 3. A half note followed by 2 quarter notes. And then you could go right to measure 3. And you'll see the rhythm is the same, though the notes are different. So see, this idea of compare and contrast can actually happen anywhere. It could happen even in the Bach minuet in G, lots of different things. So, all right, let's take a look at another concept. I'm going to go in to a place that has like 4 different spots going on at the same time. This is going to be pretty crazy. Again, Rite of Spring. This is the first movement, if you will. And it is measure 59. Actually, I'm going to start at 57 for what it's worth. And in the full orchestra of this, there's a lot of different layers. We've got this sort of triplet layer. And then you got another instrument going the opposite direction, but same rhythm. A lot of different things. So the first thing I did is just do that all in one hand. And yes, that's the right note. It's dirty, it digs in a little bit. Okay, and then there's a grace note with that. Just to add that much more sort of murky quality to it. Okay, so that's 2 of the lines. A third one is this middle line. line is this thing on top. If you've seen the Walt Disney version of this, Fantasia, sets the rite of spring to this sort of animated cartoon, and it's very prehistoric, and, you know, with all the dinosaurs and everything. And I think this is the part where the pterodactyl comes out and is like screeching at you, you know. There's this just very like kind of violent outcry to it. So all four of those things are happening at the same time. Now when you play four elements on solo piano, you can't always play every single note, or if you do, you're doing a lot of trading, which is exactly what I did in this case, where I do, well, I'll just play it for you very slow, that bit, so you can kind of just see all the juggling going on. Hang on, it's not in my fingers anymore. And then left hand. You know, there's just a lot going on there. And I have to bring the left hand up twice to play a couple notes, and that means dropping up the actual left hand part so I can catch the melody with this, going back and forth. Because unless you can stretch 2 octaves, it's not possible to play all these lines at the same time. So this is just a matter of basically what I call the complex simplicity principle. Mark Westcott simply put it this way, that complexity is no more than multiple layers of simplicity stacked together. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, basically exactly what it sounds like. If you were to just break down one of these lines at a time, it's actually not that complex. As I was showing you, it's just triplets alternating. Or the other pattern. Or just a little chromatic melody. None of that is actually complex. When you put all of it together, there's different rhythms, different dynamics, different patterns. That's where the complexity shows up. So what you have to understand is if you can convince yourself that you're actually just doing 4 very simple things at the same time, mentally you come into it with a more relaxed approach, and you come into it going, oh, I understand that, I understand that, I understand that, and I understand that. It's not that much more to put them all together now. Most people go straight for the end result and just practice really slow, putting it all together, and it's a total disastrous mess. Or even if you practice hands separate, it's still 2 things at the same time instead of just 1. And 2 things that have different rhythms. That's still fairly complex. So again, what makes it complex is the combo, not the individual quality. So how I just simply practice that is do a lot more reps of only practicing 1 line at a time so that your ear can understand it. Best analogy I ever got for this is a conductor comes in, has studied all the parts, and says, okay, you know, orchestra go, do X, Y, Z. And what you have to think of is the other side of that equation. That the flutist in the orchestra is not coming in and saying, this is the first time I've ever looked at it. I mean, there are cases where they're sight reading. Most of the time that's not the case. And so they have spent time on their own hearing their part over and over, like 1,000 times. I think in that case that's actually oboe, but you get the point, where like they're used to only their part, and then the bassoon is used to their part, and the contrabassoon is used to their part. So when they're playing together for the first time, they're really just focusing on themselves, not on the whole combination. And the conductor is seeing the whole picture. We are both the conductor and the instrumentalists. And that's what most people don't understand about piano playing. We have to be the conductor to organize how everything goes together. We also have to be the cello that does his part very carefully and understands it before bringing it to the full orchestra rehearsal. So that's the best argument I can possibly say of why we should not only do hands separate, but parts separate, so that we come prepared to our own rehearsal. And then we can say, cellists, you're not doing your job, to our just the top of our left hand. Or we can say to our oboe and our pinky, I need you to project more, because we know what the oboe is supposed to sound like. So that's one of 50,000 spots in such a work of this nature where you could apply this principle. Again, it applies even at a lower level. Theoretically, I mean, even at, let's say, a Bach invention. Like, how are you supposed to feel good about that if you've never practiced the left hand on its own, for instance? You've got to feel for the curve and the rhythm. A lot of people, once again, start hands together and don't see that connection. So that would be another thing. All right, so here is very similar. Principle number 3 for today, out of 5, is that there's sort of the opposite logic of that. Instead of just practicing things individual as separate lines, it's similar thinking, but what you're going to do is actually take a certain line and only play an aspect of that line. For example, there's 100 here. Let's just take, there's actually no limit to this. So let's take this example. Probably the most famous little tune from Rite of Spring. Literally happens a couple hundred times in a row. D flat, B flat, E flat, B flat. Those 4 notes. Over and over, right? What you could do, just to orient yourself on how the group feels and how the pulse feels, is what if you were to go through and play only the D flat out of those 4 every time it shows up? So you're not just isolating that line, you're isolating an aspect of that line. And I'll show you how this would work out. So first I need to give a little context. There's never really a moment in this whole thing where this doesn't happen. So I'll show you. D flat, B flat, E flat, B flat keeps going on no matter what else is below or above it. I'll try to make it really obvious by playing those 4 notes incredibly loud and everything else quiet. Going very slow. Even when there's a trill going on here, still have it. Started. So I'm going to go a little faster, make it a little less obvious. I think you'll still hear it. Let me scroll down. So, what have I just done? First, I'm just showing you where it's there. It never stops. So now, what if I were to apply this strategy and only play the D flats on purpose and leave the B flat, E flat, and B flat out? So it's just dun 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 dun. What this is going to do is make me hyper aware of where the group restarts, which is going to develop inside of me an internal pulse for how this ends up working out. So I'm going to also play every note that's not that main theme, but I'm only playing the first of every 4 in that main theme. So that's hard to do. It'll also slow you down because you think. I'm so tempted to want to do it. So in this case, I'd have to probably practice that a little bit more in that exact circumstance. But you could at least hear I was accenting that way more than anything else. It's really hard to avoid playing it entirely. Because it's like, you want to hear it for the security. And that's a kind of an extra bonus for today. One of the ways to get more secure with the passage is to, in the practice room, to make it somehow less secure, but on purpose. So by practicing this way, you feel more insecure practicing it. So then when you put it back in, you're like giving yourself that freedom, and it feels more secure afterwards. In contrast, you won't notice that until you've tried it in a harder way. And less notes does not mean easier. Often taking away notes is actually harder. So, and you could do this again anywhere. Chopin Etude, for example. You can tell I did not warm up this morning. But every 4 notes. One thing my teacher had me do is like play that group of 4, leaving 1 out at a time. So for example, I played the 1st, the 2nd, and the 4th, but I skipped the 3rd. So skip, 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 and then you remove the pause. So it turns 4 notes into triplets. Yeah. You know, this kind of thing. And then you do the same thing where you play like 1st, 3, and 4, but you skip the 2nd. Or you would make it more fluid. You could do every possible permutation of that, meaning you could play only 1, 2, 4, you could play only 1, 3, 4, only 2, 3, 4, but leaving 1 note out. Like that is so much harder because especially when you're used to a different way, you rely on that muscle memory to keep doing it. When you remove the muscle memory, you start having to think about it again. And by thinking about it, you make it more secure. So, all right, that's 3 of the 5 concepts. Let's look for another really hairy one. Okay, this is kind of one where basically you have to think outside the box. So I want to find in this the best example. Actually, let's go to one of my favorite parts. Which is 3/4 of the way down. Let me find it real quick. And by the way, especially if you're just kind of joining in right now, this is from The Rite of Spring, and my own solo piano transcription of it, which, if you haven't seen it, is on my other YouTube channel, and you can enjoy that in your spare time later. I had the audacity to play the thing live multiple times. It shockingly actually went well. No, it's not shocking because all these strategies I'm teaching you today are actually the very thing that got me to be able to do that. So here we go, the glorification of the chosen one. What makes this particularly difficult, it's kind of like the first principle I started off with, is there's a lot of repetition with slight tweaks. Now, the first strategy I talked about, compare and contrast to learn the differences. That would work here, but there's something else I would do because this is not just making a slight tweak, it's actually changing the rhythmic base. So we have a measure of 5, another measure of 5, then a measure of 9, a measure of 5, a measure of 7, and a measure of 3, followed by a measure of 4. That's just the first 7 measures of this section. So just to give you the idea, I'm going to count out loud and show you how this works. So we get 1, 2, here, I better play like pianissimo so you can hear me actually talking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Gotta brush up on that. It's so hard to count out loud while doing this. That's not necessarily a memory trick, but I highly recommend it just as a good practice habit. Count out loud all the time. Okay, so here we go. 5, 5, 5, 9, 5, 7, 3, 4. I'm going to do it now a little faster and show you this simply by smacking out the downbeat of each one and playing everything else quiet. No counting out loud. So. Okay, so it's very uneven in how this ends up working out. And because of that, it can be disorienting. So this is a strategy I got from Mark Westcott, who was a master of the 20th century repertoire. In fact, he was personal friends with Samuel Barber, the composer. They met like every weekend in New York, and he went over to his house. They told stories together. They even sort of wrote music together. Mostly it was Barber, but Mark gave some advice. And he, in fact, even did the Australian premiere of Barber's Piano Concerto. So fun little fact there. But they would talk about these strategies of mixed meter and how you like internalize these things. Mark basically said there's two ways to do it. You have to actually practice both in order to get the full value. So essentially, however many beats are in one measure, you practice that and then you add one beat of rest after it. See, you don't just do 5, 5, 9, 5, 7, 3, 4 back to back. You do 5 and then a beat of rest, 5 and a beat of rest, 9 and a beat of rest, 5 and a beat of rest. So what this does is it segregates the groups in your head, so you're not like just blurring a bunch of random things together, but you're actually hearing every unit individually without just like practicing ridiculously slow. So assuming you can at least kind of do it in your fingers, you can then take this strategy, go almost at full tempo, and just put a little pause after each group, and now your ear goes, oh, here's a bite-sized chunk, here's a bite-sized chunk, here's a bite-sized chunk, and there is a bite-sized chunk. So again, what this does is just cements the individuality of everything. What this would sound like, again, I'll count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. 1. Okay, so you're intentionally adding stops to understand this is the individuality of each group. Like I said, there's two ways to handle this. You have to do both. That's the first way. Okay, the second way is the same idea, but actually just pausing in a different spot. So you play the downbeat of each group, and you pause after the downbeat immediately. So you would literally just play beat 1 of the 5. 1, pause, and then you do everything else leading to the downbeat of the next one. So you hear the placement of the pulse, and then you hear everything else pushing you forward to the next pulse. So you go 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, pause, 2, 3, 4, 1, pause, 1, pause. Okay, so you're putting the pauses just, it's not like a certain amount of time necessarily. If you can stick to one beat, that's better, but really you're just giving yourself time to process each thing. The first version, pausing after the group, helps you to hear the group on its own. The second version helps you to hear the forward momentum so you can get the transition from pulse to pulse. And when you do both of these a fairly strong amount of times, let's say 10 reps each for a small section, then you hear both the individuality and the flow, and that gives you the best of both worlds, and you're left with something like this. just go to my other channel. But that is like, it's so incredibly simple, absurdly simple, and yet that was a game changer in this stuff. And half of the Rite of Spring is all about this, you know. Let's see. All over the place, different rhythms, different textures and octaves and ranges. So it's a lot of fun to practice that way, and it's surprisingly effective in how fast you start to like feel the rhythm. Not just remember it in your head, but actually feel it inside of you. Okay? So, last one of the day. This is, let's see, one of my favorite ways to do all types of memory. Probably the most annoying for pianists, but incredibly helpful. So, I'm looking for a good spot here. Oh, that's actually perfect. This is, okay, let me give context. There's two melodies in one hand. Sounds pretty crazy if you've never heard it, but basically, the confusion often happens. It's not even the physical challenge of it. I mean, that's somewhat challenging. But often what gets challenging is the ear confusing one part with the other part. And this happens because in orchestra, oh, I'm so rusty on this. I think it's flute. And then the other part I want to say is violin. Which even that is actually a duet. There's like two groups of violins. And then there's another violin. And it sounds like one continuous melody because they're branching off. So that's why I arranged it this way. But in any case, same strategy, whether it's 2 voices, 3 voices, 5 voices, a Bach fugue, doesn't matter. Same principle. You have to learn to hear them individual. And the problem is, even if you have the world's best voicing, you're still working with 2 piano timbres versus a flute and a violin that sounds absolutely nothing like each other. So even if you have a flute playing forte and a violin playing forte, and there's no balance, you're still going to notice one is different than the other. But if you have the violin part forte and the flute part pianissimo on the piano, you'll hear the dynamic differences, but still the tonal issue of it in your ear doesn't quite sound separate. So for example, exaggerated balance here. Okay, you can hear the top is different, but it's different mainly just because it's louder, not because it's actually a different sound. So, how do you create this for yourself in order to internalize it and feel it better? Very simple, actually. All you have to do, and I say all, is sing one part while playing the other. So, before you say, oh no, I've never had a singing lesson in my life, I can't sing, I would challenge that for 2 reasons. I've also never had a singing lesson in my life. Completely self-taught. Would I go sing a Broadway show? Absolutely not. But I can pitch match. I don't really care if I'm out of tune or I'm not using proper technique. I'm not singing opera. I'm not going to strain my throat in small doses. What I'm doing is just associating the sound of it and the feel of it in my own body, which helps you to internalize it more. But it also sounds wildly different than a piano. So if you can sing one while playing the other, your ear immediately makes a distinction, regardless of volume. So, sometimes I go an octave lower, or 2 octaves lower. See, there's no way anymore that I'm hearing them as the same thing because they're both the piano. And then you would flip it. You'd play the bottom and sing the top. which I'll just whistle in this case. Can I do that? Okay. Not easy to do. If you can't whistle, then hum. If you can't hum, sing. I mean, if you can't sing, play the kazoo. Like, seriously, I don't care. The idea is you have a different sound entirely. And by doing this, you associate automatically these nuances that, can you actually project that level of difference when you perform it? No, absolutely not. But if you hear it that way and you feel it that way on the inside, what ends up happening when you go to play it is, regardless of the actual sound difference, you play it in a more convincing manner, because now you're listening to one as a totally different type of thing than the other. And you get this like three-dimensional effect, which, by the way, I'm sure many of you watching have heard of Vladimir Horowitz, one of the greatest pianists of all time. He personally taught Mark Salman, who was my teacher. So literally, I am one generation removed from Horowitz's teaching. And Horowitz was the master of all time of different layers. I mean, he could do like 8 different layers of sound, dynamics, color, all at the same time. And this trick actually comes from him. So you can doubt me all you want. I don't recommend you doubt Horowitz. Because he not only is the proof in the pudding of his playing, he also just understood the necessity of orchestral piano playing. That pretty much everything after Mozart should sound very, very layered and textured and totally different. Especially when you're literally playing an orchestra transcription like the Rite of Spring here. So when you imagine this, you get this, what I call the 3D piano playing, not the 2D. 2D piano playing is like you're getting the notes and rhythms, but it's flat. 3D piano playing really feels like you're actually hearing 2 different instruments at the same time. Crazy piece to demonstrate, but as I said in the beginning, if you've been here for most of the time, if it applies to the world's hardest music, it applies to the world's easiest music. It never works the other way, usually, but it always works that way. So if you can learn from the hard pieces, you can apply the same strategy in like absolute beginner method book pieces that have 2 lines. You can apply it in, what's a good example from the repertoire? Clementi. What is it? I can imagine this as a cello line. Oh, oh, and I imagine this thick, warm sound. Oh, 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 where I express that. Now I hear it differently. And I'm automatically going to be listening for a different type of expression. So, there we go. 5 tips for memorizing, 4 of which you've probably never heard traditional piano teachers talk about, and all 4 of which I've heavily relied on when it's actually came to the highest level of piano playing by memory under pressure. So the thing is, you can do muscle memory all you want. You can do it for hours. You can do it rep after rep, and then go, well, I had this. But then you get under pressure, you play for a teacher, you play for a friend, you play for an audition, everything crumbles, you black out, you feel like you sounded better at home, and you're like, I don't get it, I put in all the time, why is this not here? This is why, because you didn't give your brain the right type of security, you gave it only muscle memory security. If you were paying attention, I made a very clear point throughout all of my 5 principles today to talk about internalizing the memory. Literally feeling it inside of you, not just thinking through it, going, this one is C sharp and this one's B. It's not tactical information. You're taking the information that you learn and you're feeling it in a practical, tangible way. And that's when it becomes truly a part of you. And that's when you have a fever of 102 and you didn't get enough sleep, and you still go out and play your piece at your top level because you're not relying on muscle memory. You're relying on something that's a very part of who you are. And Mark Westcott was all about that. Quick story to wrap up here. And then, like I told you at the beginning, I'm going to change 10 people's lives in about 3 minutes here. So, Mark Westcott, Brahms' first piano concerto. He's on schedule on a Sydney, Australia tour. This is my teacher, by the way. And it's an 11-day tour where he has to play 4 piano concertos in less than 2 weeks. This was part of a tour he got because he got back in 1969, the bronze Cliburn, Van Cliburn medal. So, he's got all these concertos ready. He's on day 2 of his tour, and he gets just this violent flu. It's so bad that on day 3, he's in a hospital bed in a foreign country, doesn't know where to go, doesn't know who to get help. And he's laying there with his his suitcase basically, with his 4 concertos sheet music in his hospital bed. And he's pulling them out. He's not strong enough at this point to literally even get out of bed. He's so weak. He's thrown up 100 times. He lost 10 pounds in 2 days. And he can barely get watered down. And he's like, I'm still going to play this Brahms concerto. I was like, dude, that is savage. I would have canceled, okay? At least before I met Mark. And then he showed me all this stuff, and now I know how he was able to do this. But he gets his scores out, and he's doing mental practice, going through them. Looking, studying, kind of singing in his head. And he literally has a fever of 102. That wasn't just some fluffy thing I threw out a minute ago. And he goes, all right, concert's in 2 days. And in his mind, he's just thinking, I'm going to get better by then, right? The next day, he's not better, he's worse. He's at this point, sweating bullets and feeling like I can't even move. And he was, if you had gotten a chance to meet him, you would have been he's one of the most savage people you've ever met. Just does not take no for an answer, ever. So the doctor's telling him, you've got to cancel the concerto. You cannot do that engagement tomorrow. And he goes, I'm doing that engagement if it kills me. And he literally meant that, by the way. It wasn't just the saying. So it's the morning of the concert. He's got to go to a dress rehearsal to play with the orchestra, and then he's playing that night with the orchestra. So he calls in and says, I can't actually do the dress rehearsal. Can I just show up and play the concerto? Only. And they're like, well, why not? He's like, well, I'm just sick. I should probably save my energy for tonight. And they're like, okay. So he talks with the conductor about a few tempo choices and everything. And he's like, at this point, he still hadn't really gotten out of bed. He rips the blankets off, takes, I don't know, a Gatorade or something to give him electrolytes. And he just literally walks out of the hospital, gets a cab, and takes himself, he unofficially checked himself out, and just took himself to the concert. Puts on his tuxedo, and goes out and plays the first Brahms piano concerto. He's now not practiced at all in 5 days. And on top of that, he's sick as a dog, can barely walk, and he gets up and without rehearsal plays the entire Brahms concerto, by memory, of course, completely under the worst circumstances of his life. Guess what? That exact performance is on YouTube. Unfortunately, only audio. I wish you could see video. He only has 1 video of his whole career. But you can still listen. Mark Westcott, Brahms Piano Concerto in D minor. And that thing sounds like it was the best performance he gave in his life of that concerto. You would go, he warmed up for 6 hours. He had good spirits. He ate a good meal. He worked out for 2 hours before that concert. He went on a great date the night before. You would think every star on the planet aligned in order to get him to do that, and it was the complete opposite. And he said, that's where I learned this principle. It was right before I played the Chopin E minor piano concerto that he told me this story. And he goes, I learned that day that the performance is not about the warm-up, it's not about the practice, it's not about all the circumstances. It's about whether or not you have the music inside of you. because when it's a part of who you are, you can't lose it. It's impossible. So he said it didn't matter that I was about to barf, and probably did as soon as he was done playing. He said all that mattered is that all of my learning up to that point, for the 6 months before or whatever, had internalized the Brahms piano concerto to such a level, it became part of my DNA. So when I go out to play and the circumstances are terrible, I still have the piece. That is the missing quality that probably 99 out of 100 pianists do not have. And that's what he imparted in me with, these 5 strategies aren't everything, but they'll take you really far, a lot farther than you've gone. If you go back, if you missed some of this, go back and watch the whole stream. Because those are the kind of things that he would do to internalize it to that level that allowed him to do something that most of the population can't do. Even professionals, by the way. So, this is awesome. Here's where I come and say hi to people. Sweet. Good to see you all. All right, so first of all, I am going to say hi this way. I will, for 2 seconds, read the comments, see who's here. Mordens with 4 or 5. Okay. Cool. So I told you all at the beginning, I'm going to change 10 people's lives. Let me show you why and how. So first of all, if you've been watching, how many of you had fun today? Just drop a 1 in the chat. And whether it was 2 minutes, whether it was 20 minutes, I'd love to see if you learned something. No ones means you learned nothing. And there could be a delay. Or you learn nothing, which is totally fine. Jingle bells, please. That's hilarious. Okay, while I'm waiting for you to say 1, I'm going to play Jingle Bells. Okay, there we are, right? So, okay, at least Kunjapu, you have to give me a 1. We just had fun. We played Jingle Bells, right? Okay, so drop a 1 in the chat if you learned something and you feel like you can use that tactic to then go and try something new in your practice. I'm going to say your name wrong, but Malicon, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you had fun. That's awesome. Learned a lot also. Good stuff. Okay, so if you feel like you have something valuable, I'm going to take it to the next level, that you could even teach to someone else, I want you to drop a 1 in the chat. And I'm not saying you have to be a teacher. Let's say you have a music friend, right? And you go and say, oh, I learned a new trick today about internalizing rhythm, about mixing up my strategies, this sort of thing. I love it. Malcon. And also, you are a #1 fan, according to YouTube. You must watch a lot of my stuff. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So, how would you love to be able to get this kind of transformation in your own playing? So it's not just me talking at you, it's you recreating it. Talakin. Method 2, different rhythms. Yeah. Oh, from Germany. Awesome. Most of my ancestry is German. So, which it's not clear because my name being Petit, right, is French, but I've got a mix. Awesome. I am the Bible. Maybe for music. Let's put it this way. I'm a book of the Bible in music. Okay. Let's not take it any higher than that. The question is simply, did you get something valuable that you feel you could even share with someone else? And then if you did, which you said you did, how would you like to have these strategies as part of who you are and not just some information that you forget tomorrow? Sam Zane. I don't know. Never heard of that. Probably a celebrity, I'm guessing. Okay, cool. So here's the really cool part. I've got this group where I mentor people in this until they become the very things that we just talked about. Mark Westcott, Horowitz, all that stuff, that legacy that I'm passing on, and you can internalize it and just absolutely take your playing to the next level. And show you quickly what we do. Not only is there live calls like what we did today, 3 times a week, which is more than anyone has time for. There's also a complete archive of courses. There's question and answers. There's a community where you get to see like-minded people who are growing and wanting the exact same things, right? And of course, I'm part of it. I lead the whole thing. So we've got that. And over the last few months, there have been over 20 people that have all joined and all been like, oh my gosh, I'm going to stay for life. Because they have seen just a taste of what we got into today. And they knew that was the next level. So I have a really special opportunity. It's only available for the first 5 people that take this, okay? It's simply that the group is $97 per month. And literally right now only, you can get a whole month in it for $5. That's it. One time, no recurring fee, $5. You can come get 12 coachings with me, bunch of other stuff. I've never offered this before, and I truly don't plan to do it again. So I'm gonna drop a link in the chat right now, if it will let me. Maybe I can respond to, okay, well that's interesting. Yay. Maybe if I flip camera, no. Okay, I need help. For anyone that's done YouTube Live, no, I've totally commented in my own videos before. It's not letting me actually respond. Okay, so what we could do is spell the whole thing out. Or how about this? You know, we'll handle it in a better way. I want you to email me, AP, my initials, at Aaron Petit Piano, so AARON PETITPIANO.com. AP@AaronPetitPiano.com. I'll send you the link. After 5 people sign up for $5, it's closed, gone. So if you're watching on replay, it's probably gone, okay? So I'm doing this because the people that are here right now are committed. The fact that you stopped your day, like somebody's on live, I'm gonna watch it, and you actually listened to what I had to say, that tells me you are committed to learning. So you are a priority. 5 people right here, right now. And what this will do for your playing in the next month even, I can't even put words to. I can even send you 60 testimonials I have of people who have like completely transformed how they practice, how they feel music, how they feel about music, how they express it to other people. More confidence, less memory slips. People who thought these pieces are impossible and never be able to play them. And 6 weeks after joining my group, they're like already playing these pieces. These are the kind of results we're seeing every single day in this Key Learners Piano Club. So email me right now. I have my email open. Again, I wish I could put it in the chat, but AP@AaronPetitPiano.com. I'll send you the link. And as soon as I get that, it's closed out. So I'll stay on for like 2 seconds. Malkan, I see that. You're going to take it. Let's do it. You're going to love it. It's going to be life-changing. I see it. There you go. Sending you the link right now. All right. Copy. Boom. There it is. Let me know. Could you confirm for a second if you got the link? Yeah. So real quick, as we're giving opportunity for a few other people, I'm going to read some of the testimonials that are right here waiting for you to be the next one. And here's the thing. If it's not you, someone else is going to join and completely change their life. So it could be you. 4 spots left. Here we go. Rosie literally said this group is life-changing. Key Learners Piano Club coaching is personal, caring, tailor-made, open to all, unique, and fascinating. The skills, it's trustworthy, it's skilled, it's fun, the best and beyond what I imagined could even exist. Above all, life-changing. Okay, like that. Who says that about a piano learning? This is like, you would say that about a Tony Robbins event, right? This is a piano group that's been able to deliver that. Tatiana says, with KLPC, Key Learners Piano Club, I've found what I've been looking for many years. An absolutely effective, personalized, comprehensive, concrete, sincere, and caring teaching program which allowed me, with the support and warm and non-judgmental community, to accomplish in record time what seemed out of reach. For context, she's an amateur player, plays a couple hours a day, and is now learning the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto, playing it with a friend by memory, with 2 pianos. That's pretty epic. Raquel, Key Learners Piano Club is like studying at a great university. It's exceeded all my expectations and continued to offer more and more. I'm excited about everything this community will offer me in the months and years ahead. She's been our longest term running member, like I want to say 9 months now. And every month she's coming back more and more. In fact, you're going to meet her on the inside because she is the admin of the group and she knows my teaching as well as anyone. In fact, she was earlier up there on the live stream if you go back on the comments. Cool. I see you got it. That's awesome. Okay, so again, you can email me. I'll send you the link. ap@aaronpetitpiano.com. 4 spots left, $5. Not doing this again. It's like $97 for a month versus $5 right now. It doesn't get better than that. Also, I'm dropping a completely brand new memory course. The world doesn't even know about this yet. It's about a week from release. For the people that are signing up, this is the next 4, I'm actually giving you the course for free. It's a whole bundle. There's PDFs, there's video trainings, there's all sorts of things. Just throwing that in there because I really want you guys to succeed. And again, if you're on a live stream out of 18,000 people that subscribe to me, you're the minority of people that take action, that show up, that really want to get more out of your piano playing. Unless you just really like listening to me talk and you don't even play the piano, which actually I kind of am saying that funny. There are some people that do that. Like I have some followers who's like, I'm not even a musician. I just like your life advice. Okay, great. Then come to Key Learners and get some life advice, right? So let me check real quick. Cool. I will stay on for like 60 more seconds. And for anyone else that wants to email me, I'll send you the link and we're locked in. Well, you're not locked in. You could always look at it and be like, that's not it. But you'll get the info, right? So now just for fun. Oh, you are a book in the New Testament. Thank you. That's good, right? Because the New Testament gives clarification to the Old, right? We need the new. As good as the Old is, it's perfect. But without the new, the Old is not fulfilled, right? Yeah, that would be funny or interesting to write the 2 testaments of piano playing or something. Okay, so you said, I've got to look up this guy just for fun. Sami Zayn. Let's do that real quick. Samizayn. Okay, all right. I can kind of see that. Yeah, I definitely could. If I grew this out, if my hair was down to here, that's the biggest difference. But I'm seeing a few pictures here, as you can all see, where he's got shorter hair. So I can see that. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you for joining for the stream. Hope you learned something. If you just joined in like the last 10 minutes, you got to go back. Like this was seriously some amazing strategies. I covered 5 things on memory. If all you saw is this and you never saw another one of my videos, amazing value. Just that. If you have seen my stuff and you saw this, amazing value, right? No matter what, that's my thing. You're never going to come to anything I do without getting amazing value. This is the next step, the Key Learners Piano Club. It allows you to take what you've tasted on my channel and literally go 10 times as far with it. So if not everyone signs up in the next 5 minutes and you're watching on stream later, theoretically it's still open, but I will actually close it as soon as there's 5. So if you email me, I'll be like, that's it. That was your chance. So come to my next live or something. That's why you join live. By the way, taster for next time. It's never the same offer. I'm always changing what I offer people. However, every time I do something live, I'm always giving something out for free or for extremely cheap, in this case, 95% off. So in any case, talk to you all soon. I will probably be on next Friday as opposed to next Saturday, but I do plan to stream once a week from here on out. So cheers.